If just 12 ships disappeared tomorrow, global power would collapse. Trade routes would freeze, alliances would fracture, entire regions would become vulnerable overnight. These are not ordinary warships, they are floating air bases, mobile sovereign territory, steel cities at sea, and they decide who controls the oceans. An aircraft carrier is not designed to defend a coastline. It is designed to project power thousands of miles from home. Each one carries dozens of fighter jets, early warning aircraft, helicopters, missile defense systems, and a crew the size of a small town. Where a carrier sails, influence follows. But here is the reality. Only a handful of nations possess this capability, and the number is smaller than most people think. The United States operates 11 nuclear-powered aircraft carriers, more than the rest of the world combined, each capable of sustained air operations for months at sea, each capable of launching over 70 aircraft. A single carrier strike group can dominate an entire region, from the Pacific to the Persian Gulf to the Mediterranean. But dominance comes at a price. Each carrier costs over $13 billion to build, and that does not include the aircraft, or the escorts, or decades of maintenance, because a carrier never sails alone. It sails with destroyers, cruisers, submarines, supply ships. It sails with a fleet built around protecting it. Now look east. China operates multiple aircraft carriers, and it is building more. Its strategy is regional but expanding, focused on the South China Sea. Control the choke points, secure the trade routes, extend influence beyond the coastline. But its carrier doctrine is still evolving. Launch systems are advancing, pilot experience is increasing, operational reach is expanding, and that growth is shifting the balance of power in Asia. Beyond these two giants, only a few nations operate true aircraft carriers. The United Kingdom, India, France, each maintains one or two. Each uses them for strategic presence rather than global dominance. But even one carrier can alter regional calculations, because presence changes perception, and perception changes decisions. So why are there so few? Because aircraft carriers are not just expensive to build, they are expensive to sustain. Fuel, aircraft maintenance, crew training, missile systems, escort fleets. Without support infrastructure, a carrier becomes vulnerable, and vulnerability at sea can be catastrophic. Today, carriers face threats that did not exist decades ago. Hypersonic missiles traveling at extreme speeds, long-range anti-ship ballistic systems, silent submarines, advanced surveillance satellites, autonomous drones. A missile traveling at Mach 5 leaves very little reaction time. A submarine may strike without warning, and modern targeting systems reduce the margin for error. So why do nations continue investing billions? Because no other platform projects air power across open oceans the same way. No airbase can move, no fixed installation can reposition overnight. But a carrier can. Imagine a crisis unfolding in contested waters. A carrier strike group moves into position. Jets begin combat air patrols. Radar systems sweep the horizon. Submarines patrol silently below. Across the distance, another fleet responds. This is not just a naval maneuver. It is a contest of logistics, of endurance, of air superiority. Whoever controls the air above the ocean controls the outcome below it. There are only about a dozen carriers capable of true global power projection. 12. In a world of nearly 200 nations, that means ocean dominance is concentrated in very few hands. These ships determine who can intervene in crises, who can apply pressure without deploying ground forces. But power at sea is never static. It shifts with technology, with alliances, with ambition. Aircraft carriers were born in the last century, yet they now operate in a battlefield transformed by data and speed. Satellites track fleet movements from orbit. Missiles move faster than ever. Drones extend surveillance far beyond visual range. Artificial intelligence assists in identifying threats. The ocean is no longer empty space. It is monitored, mapped, contested. Some argue carriers are too large, too visible, too expensive for modern warfare. A single successful strike could alter global perception overnight. But perception itself is a weapon, and carriers shape perception like nothing else. When a carrier enters a region, diplomats change tone, markets react, allies gain confidence, adversaries reconsider escalation. That is strategic influence, projected without firing a shot. Now consider global trade. Nearly 90% of it travels by sea. Energy shipments, food supplies, industrial components. Entire economies depend on uninterrupted maritime flow, and those flows pass through narrow choke points: the Strait of Hormuz, the South China Sea, the Suez Canal, the Malacca Strait. Position a carrier nearby, and calculations shift instantly. It signals readiness. It signals deterrence. It signals consequence. But deterrence only works if it is credible. Credibility depends on survivability. That is why carriers operate within layered defense networks, destroyers armed with missile interceptors, cruisers scanning radar across hundreds of miles, submarines patrolling beneath the surface, aircraft constantly monitoring airspace. This is not a single ship, it is a mobile warfighting ecosystem. Redundant systems protect critical operations. Compartmentalized hull design limits flooding. Damage control teams train relentlessly, because in the open ocean, there are no quick reinforcements. Yet the ocean remains vast, and detection is never guaranteed. Submarines exploit that uncertainty. They operate in silence beneath thermal layers. They wait, they observe, they maneuver undetected. This is the paradox of modern naval warfare. The largest ships command attention, but the smallest acoustic signatures command fear. Carriers symbolize power. Submarines create uncertainty, and uncertainty changes strategy. So who truly controls the oceans? The nation with the most visible strength, or the fleet with the most invisible deterrence? The next conflict may not begin with explosions, it may begin with silence, a sonar ping, a disappearing signal, a fleet suddenly shifting to combat posture. By the time the threat is visible, it may already be too late. Aircraft carriers remain unmatched in projecting air power. They remain instruments of diplomacy, instruments of deterrence, instruments of deterrence. But their greatest challenge lies beneath them. In deeper waters, in darker territory, because while carriers dominate the horizon, submarines dominate the unseen. The balance between visibility and invisibility will define the future of ocean warfare. The question is no longer simply who has the most carriers, the question is who can protect them, and who can threaten them without ever being detected. That is where the next chapter begins. And that is where Ocean Navy Titans goes next.